Today, we're talking about the StrengthsFinder and really being able to hone in on who you are and how this affects your everyday decisions and the people that you work with and your family life. Tune in today while Lisa and I chat a little bit more about getting to know yourself and being strong in who you are. I'm so glad that we're here today to really just hone in on something I think has been a huge stepping stone in not only our ministry, but also in our personal relationship. This idea of really digging into our identity and discovering who we are based on our strengths. And given the opportunity, I really wanted you to talk with me and for us to kind of share how the StrengthsFinder has affected our personal relationship and where we go from here. So talk to me a little bit about why you chose this book. What was the purpose for this as we're moving in our ministry?
Yeah, so I'm going to show everybody the book right now, which is called Living Your Strengths. And you may know the Gallup organization. They are a very prestigious organization that provides a lot of data. And they basically, I think it's been about 30 years that they have been learning about strengths. And we're going to talk about the difference in a minute between strengths and things that you can learn, knowledge and skills. But the reason why I chose this particular book was a few years ago when I was living in Dallas. I live in Austin now. There was a movement that was happening in the churches up in the Diocese of Dallas. And I thought it was really cool because they really started to implement taking this test, which will basically what you do is, when you get the book, or you don't even need to get the book, you could go to a website that we'll list here through the Gallup organization and just pay for access. Now, every book that you buy, you can get this on Amazon, guys, and I think it's around $20. There's a code in the back of the book. You take that code, you take the test, and it basically gives you your 5 strengths. And this movement that was happening back in the church at the time was to move into a strengths-based approach to ministry, right? So instead of just forcing any old Joe into any old role that was open in the church, what if we really looked at what you were good at, naturally disposed towards, and then tried to apply that to how you minister and how you relate to others within our community? And I love this idea because it was like, I want to look at you as an individual and I want to see who you really are, your identity, your true identity, what your giftings are, because I grew up with this idea of you have to be well-rounded to get into a college, right? You have to be good at everything. And Gallup is really specific to say, that is ridiculous because you're not going to be good at everything. You're not disposed to be good at everything. And if you're trying to be good at everything, you're going to be wasting your energy. Your energy is best used if you apply it towards what you're naturally gifted at. And then that becomes really the wellspring of everything that you're serving, and you're in your sweet spot, basically. So I wanted to see with our ministry, as we get to know each other as sisters, and as we get to know each other in a ministry sense of trying to bring restoration to people's hearts and bring them back to the Lord, that we need to know who each other really is. And we need to be able to identify what each other is naturally gifted at. And then if we build the ministry in a way that really, enhanced everybody's strengths and kind of put them in their sweet spot, how much more effective could we be? And how much better could our sisters feel about the way they're serving, because they're not being asked to do things that they're not good at or that they despise. So I feel like it really—
And we've all been in situations where someone will say, "You'd be great at this," and we're like, "Do they know me at all? I'm terrible at that,"
Yeah.
So I love what you have to say, because I think that as we continue to define not just our ministry roles, but our roles as women, as mothers, to be able to kind of say, without shame. Because I think we've talked about this before, you and I, Lisa. There's this line of shame that can be in there sometimes, where people can give you a false sense of shame over who you are, because it doesn't work for them, for their benefit in whatever position you're in. Why are you always like this? Or I wish you were more like this. And it goes to what you were saying. People expect us to fit into these molds, and if you've been trying to be a square for most of your life to fit in this box of, maybe your family is super highly organized, maybe there are a lot of type A's and you're like a free spirit and you're a circle, you can have a sense of shame about that. And I think one of the things that we're trying to highlight is this idea of recognizing, hey, I'm a circle. And this is why I'm feeling this way. I don't have to feel this sense of shame because I don't fit this mold that everyone needs me to be. What I need to do is be able to step out from all of these squares and say, there's a reason I don't fit in here. It's because this is not utilizing my talents to the best of my ability. So therefore, I need to kind of take a step back and say, where are the areas where a circle is most needed? Because those are the places where I'm going to feel the most fulfilled.
Absolutely. And we've been talking, editorially, we move in themes, right? And the theme for this editorial time has been freedom. So what you're saying there, Tammi, is allowing someone to be fully alive, and by being who they are, and then the freedom that comes with that, right? That you actually now say, well, I can just tell you, like, we had a time where one of my nephews was really struggling in life. And so we brought him up to Dallas for a while to spend time with us. And I had one of our teammates who was involved in ministry in Dallas at the time that was doing the StrengthsFinder, and she was certified through the diocese, do the StrengthsFinder and coach him for a bit. And what was incredible about that is all of a sudden you have names to things that are very specific, and they start to enlighten you about yourself. You're like, oh my gosh. Like when Tammi and I first went over our results, we're like, that's so you, and, and it's like gave us words to clearly like recognize that is a true gift in you. I have seen that. But now I know that like this is where you're most strong, or where you have the greatest propensity to grow and be strong, that I'm going to really try to support you in these areas, or what we'll go over in a little bit here, which is each strength. Guys, this is what's so cool. The notion that you would find somebody with the exact same strengths that you have in the same order as you is 1 in 33 million people. Isn't that amazing? Because there's only like 30 some of them. And so I was like, well, I mean, like these are common traits or whatever. But no, the way that you are designed is so specific. Like when you think of, the Psalm that God knitted you in your mother's womb, that he knitted you and he created you, imbued these specific strengths within you. And then that makes you so unique that everything that you approach from this vantage point. I do want to like distinguish here very quickly in the beginning before we really set out more. What's the difference between a strength and a talent, or a skill, actually? So very quickly on that, and I'm going to take it directly here from the StrengthsFinder text so that we're very defined in our language, is that a strength is the ability to provide consistent, near perfect performance in a given activity. The ability is a powerful, productive combination of talent, skill, and knowledge. So that's a strength, your consistent, near perfect performance in a given activity. And the difference between that and a skill is that a skill is a basic ability to move through the fundamental steps of a task. So this can be acquired through training, through teaching, formal, informal. And once you've acquired skills for a given activity, you have the ability to perform it at a base level. So, and then of course, knowledge, right? We all know that knowledge is something, what we know, and that can be taught. But the amazing thing here, the thing to really distinguish is that skills and knowledge have limits, okay? You can You can learn certain things, but there's only so much that you can go. And the talent is basically has like limitless potential. And it's a God-given way that you are. If you consider it for a moment, that my strength is something that God has allowed to form inside of me, that I have limitless capacity to continue to express throughout my life. The way that my strengths may manifest themselves right now can be different than 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and are definitely different than they were 5 years ago, right? My strengths actually changed in the past 10 plus years. I had two that came up as new strengths. And I really believe it's because of the work that I've been doing through the ministry, that I needed certain strengths to come forward, because, you have dominant strengths and then lesser strengths. And then I also really relied less on those other strengths because they weren't really being lived in their full potential. So that's an important distinction to make between something that is just a natural ability in a way that you are, versus something that can be taught or learned.
Well, and I think that's important, because I think when we look at it, you can learn organization.
Right.
That can be a skill that you acquire, is how to organize things.
Yeah.
But that might not be where your talent lies. You might not be very strategic. It might not be something that's really, true to who you are. So it's interesting because one of the things that I've learned, I kind of just have this list of my top five talents, and we can get into those too. But I didn't realize the importance of the order. And I think if you can't just look at your top five frivolously. You have to look at the order that they're placed in, because that's actually how your life is geared.
Yeah.
And I'll share with you, I did this with my husband after doing it myself, because it was such a revelation, and I really wanted to know who I was working with.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my spouse of over 20 years, and I think I pretty much could predict a couple of them, but I knew they would provide insight and really help our marriage and help the way that we talked. And I wasn't surprised when my husband had belief as his second. Because it has been such a cross for him with every job he's ever done. He has always felt like it was sort of pointless, like, well, this job is it's a way for me to make money. Yeah. It's a way to care for my family. Yeah. But sitting down with him and going through it and saying, this is the reason. It's because you're not doing something that is part of your core sense of beliefs. It's not something that you are passionate about. And then kind of being able to say, what do we do with this now? What do you do with this information? And I think we'll get into that a little bit later too. But Lisa, I wanted to have you, if you could, because you have a lot more knowledge about this than me. I'm sort of like, I'm like the freshman and you're the professor for StrengthsFinder 101. Tell us a little bit about those 4 areas that some of us either can be really strong in one of these 4 areas, and then our talents obviously come underneath one of these 4 areas. And we can also kind of be eclectic. So kind of walk us through those.
One important thing to distinguish here is that when you come into your natural abilities, you go so much further. And our natural abilities are broken up under, they are basically 4 different areas. But if you think of it, each set of strengths falls under specific way of being, is basically each set of strengths falls under. So there are 4, and I'm going to read them to you again so that we're specific here, which is that executing is the first one. Okay. So people that are good at the set of strengths that fall under the executing are, they're thinking oriented, focused on results, like to take action, jump in and get it done. Now, we know, you know me, and you know that at least one of mine is going to fall under this area.
That's my girl, Lisa.
And so that's really speaking to my strengths there, is I am one of those analytical types that likes to look at how things are working or not working, reroute, and then I want to get it done. And I want to make some progress each day. And I like to take action. I don't like to talk a lot about what we're going to do. I like to just do it. So
So those are our natural leaders.
Yeah, right. Now, influencing is great. Now, if you think of, we often associate, social media influencers. And if you think about people that are very influential, they have strengths that fall into this category, which is that they're feeling oriented, they're good networkers, they're excellent idea sellers, and they're expressive. So all of those qualities help them, and the set of strengths they have will fall under. Now, what's cool about this is, I don't know. I listened to a YouTube where there was one lady who had all of her talents fell under one specific area.
Wow.
Wow. They were all strategic. And I thought, oh my gosh, this woman operates completely strategically, But what I think is really cool is, and I can even share the screen on mine so you can see how this looks. But when you have a couple skills here, a couple skills there, a couple skills there, it really allows you to bring in these different areas that you can be strategic, but you're also an influencer, you're also under communication or whatever. So the next one is relationship building. And this is very Tammi here, you had some talents that fell under this area, which is you're inclusion oriented, you're team thinkers, you're good listeners, and you're sincere and respectful. And check for all of this. Yeah. For you. Right. And the last quadrant here is going to be strategic thinking, which is focus oriented, we value data and logic, long-term thinkers, and strategizers. And so I'll share my screen real quick so that you guys can see what this looks like. When you get your results and you take the test, you're going to see something that looks like this, right? Which is going to be, these are my, executing theme. This would be under influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. So it's funny, I don't have one under influencing. I have 2 under strategic, and my number 1 is strategic, right? And then 2 is responsibility, 3 is belief. My number 4 is connectedness, and my number 5 is input. And all of these have descriptions, and I don't really want to take a ton of time because this isn't like, let's describe everything about StrengthsFinder. This is more speaking to it and how it serves, serves the whole here. And then what's cool is when we look at Tammi's next to mine, is that you see where she fills in gaps. And we worked with a coach. Tammi and I had a session with a coach. Fantastic woman. Her name is Lisa Miladnik. We can connect any of you with her. She is certified and very, very knowledgeable. She's like definitely the guru, much more knowledgeable than I in all of this. But she was like, you two together, it's kind of like power couple, right? That like we could go in and read the room, and then it's like, I'm thinking strategically, and then she's coming in with her influencing and relationship building and filling in the gaps for me.
I think it was really neat that, the only strategic thing I had was belief.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've talked about this before, that, that's how we met. We met on prayer teams. We met with our core sense of belief has really kind of gotten us to where we are.
That's under your executing. Yeah, that's under that executing there. And, that really shows, how important it is for you to make things happen that you actually really believe in,
Right. Because other than that, I'm just about talking to people and building relationships.
Yeah.
So,
well, you're much more complex than that, actually, but those show your heart. Do you want to name what yours are as well?
Sure. So mine starts off with communication. So that's something that's really important, that goes more with relationship building. And then my second is empathy. I'm somebody who really needs to kind of understand people. I can read a room pretty quickly, and I can kind of understand where people are coming from. My third is belief. And that has to do with, we talked about it before, kind of having a purpose for what I'm doing.
You have communication, empathy, woo, belief, and developer.
There it is. Woo.
Yeah.
My woo. I always find that one funny. which really has more to do with my ability to kind of draw people in, you know, to kind of draw. I was joking around. I was like, I'd be a great cruise director, you know, get people in there. Let's talk about a little bit of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one of the things I think is really interesting is for people who are watching this, you know, this isn't something that Lisa and I set up. You know, it wasn't like, let's take the two people from our group who are the most kind of opposite or who can kind of complete the circle of this. This was something that we did really to be able to provide more of assistance to the rest of the ladies in our group.
Yeah.
But moving on to another question that I have for you, Lisa, you know, I think the beauty of something like this is for people, once they sit down and they look at their top 5 talents, and like you mentioned before, this book, Living the Strengths, being able to kind of go through and say, what does this mean? You know, and there's also the StrengthsFinder 2.0. We'll reference both of these and provide links for them like on our website. But it kind of gives you an idea of where I go from here. You know, now that I have all these things, and then how do I communicate, you know, what I need because of the way that my talents lie. And I want to share a quote with you. And this is, when you read the book, they have some specific people that comment, you know, that kind of give their thoughts after they've done this. So this was a quote from one of the women in the book. And she says, strength talents meant I could grow without guilt. It meant I could say no with solid reasons and not lame excuses. So why share that? Well, I think there's times when people will say, you know what you'd be really good at? You'd be really good at running this, you know, running our next fundraiser. If anyone ever said that to me, I would start to panic.
Yeah.
You know, because I can't execute something like that. I have no idea where to begin. I would be completely overwhelmed. It's not in my realm house. But if you are on a committee for doing a fundraiser and you want to throw some sort of cocktail party, I am your girl to walk around, to meet everybody, to share, you know, why I'm so passionate about what we're fundraising for. I can get people to understand why we're doing it. That's where my role will lie. Yeah. So I can say no to those things that would be extremely hard for me and would not be an area that I'm challenged, but be an area where I'm actually stunted in my growth and in my ability to help. Yeah. So I think being able to say, hey, this is what I can offer you. So I can't run that committee, but I can be really powerful in these ways. Right. I can be really powerful in the social aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But what I need is that you don't put me in a situation where I'm in charge of executing something or figuring out the strategy for our fundraising.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And what, there's power in that, right? And like you said, I mean, that means all of a sudden that I'm allowed to be good at what I'm naturally inclined towards. And the other things I don't have to worry. So there was another quote in the beginning of the book that I want to say, which is that you will be most successful in whatever you do by building your life around your greatest natural abilities rather than your weaknesses. So put your focus on your strengths instead of saying, oh, I'm not good in these areas, so I need to become stronger, I need to become better. It's like, nope, just put your, you know, put it in where you're already naturally strong, and then you're going to become most successful because those areas that you're investing in yourself in will reap a harvest, right? Whereas otherwise you're saying, okay, no, well, Tammi, I understand that maybe you're not really gifted, but we just need somebody to fulfill that role. So go ahead. And then what's going to happen is you can just see it whenever you start to experience issues, tension, problems, is that you have really created a system that is not flowing because she doesn't want to do it. Now, if she doesn't want to do it, what's going to happen? She's going to procrastinate on things that she's supposed to be doing. She's going to have a ton of questions. She's going to be late. You know, she's got all these different things that are going to happen as a result. And the people are going to be like, oh my gosh, this is such a nightmare. It's like, you know what? She told you right off the bat that that was not something that she was good at. You know, if you don't have the language though, if you don't know, well, this is not, have some ideas about things that I like doing, once you have the language of the Strengths Finder, you're like, this is me, this is who I was created to be. And so my talents and giftings, my calling is what God's given me, right? He's put a calling on my life and said, whatever. My talents is how I'm going to live out that calling. It's as simple as that,
Yeah.
So I think we were coming to the brings and the needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing about, so there's a test that our coach, Lisa Maladnik, drew up for us, and it says, I bring and I need. And so I'm looking at mine right now, and I, it just an example would be like in my strategicness, what I bring, I contribute, the value that I add is that I can recognize patterns of data. I can determine the best way to proceed. I have flexibility to find an alternative way forward. I have a creative anticipation of what may happen, a willingness to consider all of the possibilities. So what's cool to think is that, like I said before, you can give people skills, but strategic thinking is a way of being. And what Lisa let me know was like, she's like, you're a very fast processor. Like your brain goes at a speed that you can't, like, you just kind of think, well, this is the way I think, and this is the way people's brains are. No, not true. My brain thinks differently because it's number one, it's strategic. And so I am thinking at a rate that is going faster than, I guess, average, and stuff. And that I can be thinking that, oh, she's keeping up with me here. Whereas no, I start to look at, Tammi needs communication because that's her strength, right? So I need to learn as a strategic person, I need to learn how to speak through what my brain is doing in a way that can explain it to a communicator so that she can feel that she's part of what's going on and that she can get on board, because she needs to believe in what we're doing too. Both of us have belief, So as long as I can talk my way through what my brain is processing and then she as a communicator can help me do that, because I might be going at the speed of light and she's like, I just laid ears on this for the first time, woman, that we can talk through it and then come to that common belief. So that's what I bring, and what I would need. This is my energizer, right? I need opportunities to see the big picture and play out the alternative scenarios. I need freedom to make mid-course corrections, okay? Because my strategy, although we may have one at the beginning, is going to have to, as the alternative scenarios come up, I'm going to have to be able to change course. You need to give me permission to be able to do that. I need challenges to navigate through. Otherwise, I'm super bored. And ownership to set the direction. As long as I can say, okay, this is the way we're going, then I feel energized by that. So what's really cool about this is once you know that strength, you can say, hey, this is the value that I'm going to bring to my marriage. This is the value that I'm going to bring to my ministry. This is the value that I'm going to bring to my job. This is the value that I bring to all my relationships. And in return, what I ask for, what brings me energy, where you'll see me light up and come alive, is XYZ. And it's really cool once you know your brings and your needs. And when you know that about the other person, you can say, okay, for example, we used to have these meetings, Tammi and I, meet on Tuesdays, and I am a strategist, right? So like I have my set of things that we need to get through, and I'm also strong under executing. So I want us to be able to check off that we are making progress in these areas and to get through that in about an hour. Whereas, Tammi, what was your need that you brought to the?
I mean, my need is communicating and relationship building. So I want to know how you're doing.
Yeah.
I want to jump over there and figure out like what your day looks like and where your heart is in Texas this week. And I want to share what's going on my end of it. And I don't think in terms of a checklist and what we have to get done. I think in terms of, I think in terms of vision for the ministry, okay, so this is what I thought, this is where I feel the Lord pulling us, so I think to your point, I think you have to, when you recognize that you have somebody like me on board, it's, and you have these, strategies, it quickly becomes, me when we're in a meeting saying something like, I think what Lisa is trying to say in this is our vision. If we complete the following things, that it will create this, cohesiveness between us, or it will create our a different perspective for our ministry. And it's being able to empathize with what you're trying to do, but also being able to kind of promote and communicate the bigger picture, because I think that's one of the things we've talked about, Lisa, is that you need to see the big picture in order to break everything down with steps. And for me, I need to be able to communicate the bigger picture so that because part of mine is I need to be able to have a voice and I need to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that looks like being able to say, hey, this is a great program we've come up with. This is why I think you guys will love it. This is what I know about you all. And this is where we're empathizing with where you are in your life. So I think that, once you take this test and you begin to realize what you need, it becomes less about people being offended by maybe what you need, and people being able to recognize, that's just who she is. She's not trying to dictate that I need to be her or I need to be like her. But what she's trying to show me is in these meetings, she needs to understand. So I don't like to leave a meeting not understanding something.
Yes.
Whereas somebody else, maybe in a strategic position, could leave with a list of things that they have to do and feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
If I'm not on board emotionally with what we're doing, I leave a different way. I leave feeling more misunderstood.
Yeah, I think that when we look at, Tammi's needs, that empathy and communication are her top two, so she's approaching it with, she needs clarity, she needs emotional comfort, she needs stability, she needs emotional depth, to the relationships. So she wants, if empathy and communication are her top two, that's why coming into the meeting, she's like, okay, I want to be understood. I want to engage with you. I need opportunities to fine tune my messages so that they're most meaningful. She's trying to sit there and even fine tune my messages, but I don't feel, because I know this about her, it's helpful to me because my brain is already processed through all of that. Or maybe it's processed things to a certain point and then it's stopped. And then her communication is going to come through and say, we haven't quite really fine-tuned that yet. It was kind of a rough draft, that first one. How can we get that a little bit more where it needs to be so that the team understands, or so that, the community understands here. Also, she needs opportunities to make decisions based on intuition. And it's funny because as much as strategic is part of my strengths, my spiritual giftings really also lie in the discernment of spirits and really allowing the Lord to use me. So this is where we come into, you have spiritual gifts and then you have just natural kind of talents and stuff. Spiritual gifts we look at are different than talents, right? Because St. Paul talks about the spiritual giftings, whether it be prophecy, teaching, tongues, discernment of spirits, whatever these different things are. It's not covered in this book. They do talk a bit about spiritual gifts as well. But it's cool when you think of, okay, my spiritual gifts coming along that, because my spiritual gifts really helped my strategy because I look to the Lord to say, okay, you're CEO, you're boss here. Where do you want us to go? And actually, a lot of those mid-course
corrections,
changes that I need to make are based on the Holy Spirit.
that intuition,
that intuition that's coming through, that the Holy Spirit, I feel, is saying, okay, we set out to do this talk today. And mid-course, I really realized that we needed to talk about something that I really didn't even have on the radar before, because I allowed the spirit to really move me in that. So that's just something else to be aware of in the mix of all of this, is that you have your spiritual giftings as well. They really can come alongside your natural talents and enhance them in a greater way.
Well, and I think to one of the things that you were saying, I think it also goes both ways in a relationship, whereas you're looking to make sure that I feel like I understand and I'm communicating my thoughts. I also have to be sensitive to the fact that for you, there needs to be this sense of accomplishment, that these strategies that you're trying to put into play are actually being executed, because that's your other thing.
Yeah.
So it's, you talk about our meetings on Tuesday, and I felt like, our meetings were going like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I was getting off the phone just my cup was so full of just my friendship with you and us sharing our families. And then I started realizing like, oh man, like we didn't talk about this, we didn't talk about these areas that she wanted to talk about. And, I had kind of come to you and I was like, Lisa, I don't want to take away this component of it, but I do think like, do you have like, some sort of agenda that you could give me? And it was interesting. I felt like it really spoke to Lisa's heart. She sent me this 1 hour kind of breakup outline. And she was like, this will be great. Like if we could follow this, she would have that same sense of, because we're so close, we're never going to not communicate as friends, but there's a tendency for me to pull her away from strategy and pull you away from what's important to you, especially as a founder of a ministry. You need to feel like your burdens are alleviated and that, your vision is kind of taking place. So Lisa's done just a tremendous job of kind of rehoning our meetings. And then I think the other thing is Lisa recognizes the fact that I want her to feel unburdened. So oftentimes when we're in our meetings, Lisa will be giving me lists of tasks to do. She'll be assigning me tasks. And I never feel that that's something that she's kind of lording over me. Well, I think I know that she's doing it because she recognizes my brain doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
But she recognizes that I want her to feel like when she gets off the call that it's been mutually beneficial. Yeah. So she'll say, okay, I hear you saying that. I'm writing, you write down here, you need to finish this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to send that email to so-and-so. And it's a great sense of relief, because what she's doing is she's ultimately organizing my day for me in a way that's relational for me. It makes sense. I know what I need to get done based on what her and I have talked about.
I think I orchestrated those things that way based on you coming to me and expressing that. It was so great. That communicator came out in you to say, look, we both, need to take away something during this time. And then as that response of, okay, my strategy mind is going like this, and realizing that the communicator needs to understand what tasks are being laid before, and that she understands, okay, now I have a belief that this is going to, that this aligns with my values and my work, and that this, serves the greater purpose. And so it helps me then to say, okay, the communicator is going to need me to be more specific, that at the end of that conversation, she's like, okay, ready, good, go, let's go. And it was just like, she kind of got lost over an hour and a half of like all the things we talked about. It was like, what am I really supposed to be doing here? And it forces me, and that's the beauty of it, is that other person really can draw something out of you, maybe that not natural to you, but it is a skill. It is a skill that you can learn to say, okay, let me break down my strategy into bite-sized pieces here and say, by the next time we meet, these are the 5 things that I would like for you to work on, and then she could take it. I mean, none of us are in an office here together. I know she's got, a husband and 5 children. She's a homeschooler, that she's going to take it if it's at 12 o'clock at night, because that's when she's awake and she's got a little bit of time. That's when she does it. So it's up to her when she's going to execute those things. And as she said before, executing wasn't strong. She didn't have strengths under that. So my strategy can come in to say, this is how I can help you to execute. If I'm very clear in my communication that I know that you need, and I set you the course, you just check off the boxes.
And I think we also, kind of in wrapping up, we really want to talk about, this idea of freedom
Yeah.
and the reason for doing this. And I think, maybe those are people here that are listening to this that are like, I'm not in ministry, or maybe I'm a full-time mom, or maybe maybe I work from home. Maybe I don't have to have these interactions with people. There's a freedom that comes. I look at even just my relationship with my spouse. There's times where I've been annoyed by decisions that he's made, or things that he has me do. And I'm like, why do I have to do it this way?
Mm.
And I think sitting down with him and kind of looking through his strengths versus mine, you begin to kind of see, oh, he needs this.
Yeah.
So my husband would infamous for sitting down on a Saturday morning and making a list of things to do. And I would like roll my eyes. I'm like, why do I got to sit here with you while you go through a list of things you have to do? Like, can't you do that by yourself? Like, why do I have to be here?
Yeah.
And like, what I didn't realize was he needed to make sure we were on the same page. He's very high and strategic.
Yeah.
He needed to make sure that even though he was communicating what he was doing, he needed to make sure that I understood that these were things that had to get done for the day.
Yeah.
Because what he was ultimately saying is, if I'm not around, it's because I'm doing these things and I deem these important. Do you see these as important as I do?
Right. Or don't give me things that are going to take me away from this track here, because
Right.
this is the track that I'm on. I want you to be supportive of that. Don't start saying, we need to power wash the house. I thought you were gonna do the lawn. It's like, lady, I'm showing you right now.
Right. Well, and sometimes, I'm the master calendar holder in our house, and he would sit down with his list and I'd be like, wait, hold on a second. We have that family party today, but it goes from like 12 to 5. You need to kind of rewrite your list here. Like, none of that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So let's kind of rethink it. Let's rethink what we add to the list on Sunday, or, what you're going to do on Friday. So you have a greater sense of accomplishment of doing these things that you want to do. Or would you like to meet us at the family party? Like,
Yeah.
we can get there at 12, but would you like to show up at 2 so
Yeah.
you can get a couple of these things done?
Mhm.
And I think that in that, there's a freedom of being able to be on the same page for somebody like me who needs to communicate, to be able to say, I see your priorities. I don't see all of them, because I want to communicate with you that we have a priority to our godson's party, to be there for him. There's my empathetic side, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're the godparents. We need to be there. We need to really be giving everything that we have. So you're going to have to turn that part of your brain off that's thinking in terms of lists when we're at the party. So
Yeah.
what can we do beforehand? And then what can we do after, that you feel like you've had a productive Saturday? Because we know, me walking around talking to people and loving on my godson, my tank is going to be filled.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you need to do, is recognize when you go into, and this is where we're talking about freedom too, what does your ideal weekend look like?
Yeah.
If your idea of ideal weekend might be a doing weekend.
Yeah.
And mine might be, hey, I want to just hang out on the front porch with some tea and do nothing and feel like this is the greatest weekend.
Yeah.
But if we can communicate, both of us can kind of have those moments.
Yeah. Freedom is found in what honors the other person, right? What honors myself and what honors the other person. And of course, that speaks to the very heart of, okay, I know my identity. I know who I am, that I can say that these are my top 5. So these are the things that are obviously my strengths. That's how I look at everything, right? And, through that, there's a great quote here that says that your talents filter the way you approach every single situation you encounter and every decision you make, right? So every single decision you make, every situation you encounter, you look at it through the filter of your strengths, right? And it's incredible to think of, that's what's happening. So the way that other people can honor you is recognize that you see the world in a certain way because of how you're comprised. This is your makeup. It's when we have the language of StrengthsFinder, it really allows us to know who they are on that core level, to know what they bring and know what they need, and not to have these expectations, because I think that expectations really set us up then to be hurt, to be disappointed. We can just allow them to be who they were created to be, and then be ourselves. And hopefully, we complement one another with our strengths, with our giftings.
When I look at my strength finder, right, I don't think that it's a box I necessarily have to live in. Like, this is only where you live.
Yeah.
But it does make sense on certain things I do.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll find this really interesting, Lisa. So Lisa knows I just moved, and I was sitting down, I was talking to my husband, and we just gotten the okay from our landlord to move in early. And I turned to my husband and I said, okay, my strategic spouse, break this house down for me. What should I move first? What should I start to box up? What makes the most sense? And it was like this light shone in his eyes, and he was like, whoa, you never asked me to do that before. And I was like, but what has happened is you've gotten frustrated.
Yeah.
You've gotten frustrated by rooms I've chosen to knock out first. And you've said, why did you do that?
Yeah.
And for me, I don't care what I pack. I just need to start packing something.
Yes.
I need to start moving toward a goal. So I think being able to recognize where your strengths lie and where your weaknesses are, that you can say, oh, I'm an idea person. I've got great ideas, or I have great relationship building skills, but I need to get somebody to help me through executing this.
Yes.
I need to talk to somebody who's better at this, because I'm also going to speak into their worth if I say, hey, I got something I need you to help me out with.
Mm-hmm.
I got this great idea, but I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah.
Or if you have a friend who's really good with input, that's one of the executing things, hey, have you done any research on something like this? Or do you know how to go about telling me how to do this, how to find information out on this? All we're doing is really speaking into the worth of that individual.
Yeah.
And saying, I honor this about you.
Yeah.
I know it's not a strength of mine, but I would love to be able to have you speak into it and honor our friendship, honor that aspect. And I think when we look in the same concept of freedom, if we are looking at ministry work, we can kind of look at our team and take a step back with these test finder results and say, you know what, when we're having a tough emotional time, where are my people who have empathy?
Mm-hmm.
Because I really need to hone in on what they're saying.
Yeah.
Or this person doesn't feel like they can get something, their point across. Where's my communicators? I'm going to connect this person with my communicator and say, maybe you guys should work together, because I feel like you don't feel understood, and I want you to have a solid place here. So maybe she can help you communicate better what your vision is.
Yeah.
I think these are just, I'm going to start this with my teens.
Yeah.
Because, I have my teens here, and I know they think different than me.
Yeah.
And I can't spend the rest of my life with them trying to make them circles when they're not.
Yeah.
And I have to honor that part of them. My one son, I've actually given him the job sometimes of packing the car, because his brain works in strategy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, girls, just bring the stuff out and your brother will pack it. And he just you see it on his face.
Yeah.
You see the fact that he loves that. He loves that, we're honoring what he's good at.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things we can do, is we can really take a big picture and say, what if we did this in our churches? What if we did this in our women's group? What if we did this in our friend group?
Yeah.
What if we did this in our families? What if, instead of rolling our eyes and being annoyed by the family member who always wants to get stuff done, we give them stuff to do?
Yeah.
What if people just felt their worth? I think there's a total freedom that's there. I think it's a freedom that we found in our ministry, that this year is going to be about letting people sit on that throne of their talents, and also being able to kind of have a talk like this to say, hey, pick up this book, give the quiz a try.
Yeah.
Be open to this newfound area of your life. If you're a person that's always sat back and said, I don't have talents. I have no idea what my giftings are. I have no idea. This book is for you. Open it up, examine it, have somebody kind of give you an idea based on your own thoughts where you lie, and then kind of rediscover yourself and decide maybe 2021 is going to be a different year for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that this has been such a valuable tool, personally, professionally, in terms of ministry, uh, extremely valuable. And I think it just only enhances your self-knowledge and then others' knowledge of you. So we wholeheartedly, the other version of it is called the StrengthsFinder 2.0. That is a business version of it. And then the Living Your Strengths is this is the Catholic edition that I got. They also have Christian resources. So there's a lot of they've done a lot to be able to look at, okay, strengths in many, aspects of your life. And they speak to it. I mean, the strengths are the strengths regardless, right? But the way that they speak to it in terms of the ministry editions or versus the business is more applicable language, that applies to that. So we'll link up to the Gallup website if you guys just want to buy. I think it's about $20 or so to just buy, access to the test, take the test. It takes about 35 minutes on average, could take a little bit longer depending. And after you take the test, you'll immediately get the results. And then from there, there's a lot of literature that you can look at. You can pay extra to really see your themes built out. We could hook you up with a coach, certified coach such as Lisa, who would be able to really work with you to speak into these things and help you really fully understand that. Could work with your teams, could work with your groups or whatever as well, that she's developing those resources as well. So I just really have loved being able to do this exercise. And now to be able to talk about it with Tammi to kind of unpack it for you guys so that you can really kind of dip your toe into the StrengthsFinder as well and start to really learn how to live in a place of freedom, to live in a place that really honors who God created you to be, and then to know who you really are as a daughter or son of God, and then just live out from that spot and really honor yourself and honor those around you by allowing God to really develop these areas that he has naturally gifted you with. It's really remarkable.
Agreed. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for taking the time and just sharing your thoughts on this with us. Thank you for buying my book and sending it to me and really just encouraging me to avail myself to this. I think that the benefits far outweighed the time that something like this requires. Yeah. So if any of you are on the fence, I'd say, just dive right in and see what the Lord has in store for you.
Absolutely. Well, it's been my pleasure. So God bless you guys. And we're here for any questions that you might have as well. Take care.